Watches that suck to own is a trend going on in the watch YouTube world, and everybody says vintage.
Fuck you. What is up, Watch fam? I am Christian, the curator of the Theo and Harris Vintage Watch Shop.
My name is Michael, and you are wearing one of the coolest watches in the world.
I am
on your
a
wrist.
happy boy.
That is unbelievably yours,
We'll
too.
talk more about this later. I'm really excited.
Yes, and this video is sponsored by the watch on my wrist, and where you can get it, Huckberry.
Amazing Zodiac Seawolf. Can't
Yes.
wait to talk more about why the Seawolf is such a great watch a little bit later.
Yes, sir.
So today, trending on the internet is watches that suck to own. So today, Michael and I are basically unpacking some of the categories of watches that may or may not suck to own. People have accused these categories of sucking, and frankly, Michael and I can speak really, we could speak really pointedly, disproving some of the allegations.
Wow, I thought that was a whole setup of you saying, Michael, I can speak really passionately about sucking. You're gonna... Okay, so number one that I see in a lot of lists, and I figured, well, this video is really going to consist of me poking you because you see one here and then you see what we're going to hit on later. But vintage watches suck to own, and I want to get into a final wrap at the end of...
I was on a date one time and a girl poked me like over here, and she had an accent. And she goes, "Are you fat?"
What'd you say?
I was like, I just tried to ignore the question. She's like, "Because you look thin in the shirt." She was Israeli.
Wow. Was she? Oh, so she was saying you look thin. She wasn't saying like, I'm checking later. Are you fat? Anyways, vintage. Obviously the common things are they're easy to break. They're not as water resistant. This, blah.
Yeah. So first of all, I'll say on vintage watches, I don't think that they're easy to break. I think that is a ridiculous thing to say.
Yeah.
They are comparably easy to break compared to new watches, sure. But in the course of daily use, it is very unusual to break a vintage watch. That's it. I know. I literally sold hundreds, probably, I don't know, thousands. I don't even know.
Millions.
Vintage watches, and the amount of times that they have broken through usage is such a small minority. Yeah. And then what do we see? Maybe we see a scratched acrylic crystal. Very solvable problem, no problem.
Yes.
Maybe.
Which is also not broken.
Which is not broken at all, right? Yeah, I mean, that, of course, when I tell people when they say, what can't I do with my vintage watch? Well, I say, don't have it in the bathroom when you're taking a shower because of the steam,
sure,
right? Can get in the watch. I tell people, don't play baseball with it because the shock when you're
high impact. Yeah.
Right. Golf, baseball, axing, chopping down a tree. I did that. Yeah. Shock will break a vintage watch fairly easily, but it will also break most modern watches fairly easily. Sure. I really disagree with vintage watches are delicate as a statement.
I think the true note here is a lot of people go into vintage watches assuming that if they find a steal on eBay or something like that, they don't need to get it looked at or that it's already perfect.
Right.
When in reality, if you're going 50s, 40s, 30s, 60s, whatever it may be, that watch probably hasn't been touched in 30, 40 years.
100%.
So all of a sudden it's not as strong as it even is supposed to be.
I think a good rule of thumb is, when you buy a vintage watch or buy any pre-owned watch, you need to factor in a service from between $400 and $900, depending on how severe it is.
Yeah.
For it to go above $900 is, in my experience, very, very rare, assuming you're using a third-party service.
That's also if you get like a 30s chronograph. Then you're asking for trouble.
Well, that's a whole other thing, right?
Yeah.
Which is kind of what we're getting into next, which is, okay, why would vintage watches actually suck to own?
Yeah.
The only sucky part about vintage watches is the repair can be persnickety, looking for parts and looking for a qualified watchmaker. Even for a qualified watchmaker, on occasion, parts can be difficult to find. I'm not going to make up numbers here. I will definitely say finding a watch that is hard to find parts for is in the small minority. That is a small minority of times that happens. Very, very small, almost negligible, but it does happen, okay? And then when you break a part in a modern watch, you can get a part fairly easily.
Sure.
Now, getting that part is very expensive. When you want to buy a part for a modern watch, the odds of you getting ripped off from the company are very, very high because they're the ones that are holding the parts. So whereas in the vintage watch world, the companies themselves are not holding the parts unless you want to go through their service department. So for instance, if I've got a vintage Omega, let's say the Omega's worth $2,000.
Sure.
And I need a simple service, but something in there is broken. If I can find the part through a third-party watchmaker, you can expect to pay about $110, $140 for the part. If the part is unavailable. If you cannot find it after you look high and low, then you need to go to Omega. Omega definitely has the part. They have all the parts.
Exactly. They made the part.
They make the parts. They actually still might make the parts. And that's
wild.
Yeah, right. That's
wild.
a whole other thing. Yeah. But they're going to bang you out for somewhere between $1,500 and $2,000, sometimes even more for the service.
Because it's a vintage watch. It's a special part. We had to find it. There's a limited supply, possibly.
Exactly.
Yes.
So that's the only reason. That's the long and the short of why vintage watches might suck.
Yeah.
Now, and I'm almost done with my rant. The reason they don't suck, right, objectively, is while they do come with a slight cost of ownership, not just financially, but a little bit of attention.
Sure.
You can't just buy a vintage watch and be sure you can forget about it forever. Right? You need to, a little bit of love goes into it.
Of course.
Isn't that all things that are worth doing?
Yeah.
Be it vintage cars, be it cooking. If you close your eyes and think about the dishes that your mom made growing up that bring you the most joy, were those, I mean, I'm not saying they were complex, but they took time and love.
She was a decent ceramicist.
You know what I mean? Like, even though pasta fagioli is a simple dish, when your mom's, it's an Italian bean and pasta dish, there was love went into it, time went into it, care went into it. That's why it's such a good thing. It's worth it. But I'm not the only expert on vintage watches. You've been handling vintage watches for how long? I mean,
for 20, 30 years.
You're an idiot. But you also, even before you worked with Theo and Harris, those two guys, you had your own vintage watch. Were you experiencing a lot of difficulty?
No, you know what? Honestly, no. The tough part is there's a barrier of entry where you have to be like, that's a redial. That's this. That's that. But the watch doesn't suck. It's always about, you have to do your research and you have to go in intentionally with things.
Totally.
But randomly, it's like an indice might fall off. A very, very old watch, usually a brand name that you're not familiar with.
Yeah.
The watch goes for a steal. But it's also, I will say, the part that doesn't suck to own is like the mystery of, if you go really obscure, that $50 watch find on eBay. Coolest story I have is, I forget what watch it was. It was a no-name brand, but the case was actually black. The dial was beautiful.
Wow.
And I was like, that's definitely like not supposed to be like that.
Yeah.
I have no idea what that is. But the watch was cheap enough that when I got it, I polished it with toothpaste. And it was, I don't know. I don't want to say it was rose gold because rose gold wouldn't take that color over. Maybe it would if it was a specific blend. But it polished up to just a beautiful, like the warmest coppery rose gold ever.
Wow.
Yep. Gave it to a girl, fell off her wrist, and she lost it.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding.
Classic.
Which
is really just an allegory.
It just says so many things. One day she was like talking to me and I was looking at the watch and I was like, wow, I can't believe how vibrant the dial is. Like, wow, that's crazy. She's just still talking, and I was like, it's really just like three-dimensional. And I was like, did the crystal fall off? She was like, what crystal? And I was like, oh. And then we were getting a new crystal, and then she just lost the watch. So it was actually way easier for me.
She actually saved me a ton of money on the crystal. She just went ahead and lost the whole watch.
But it was one of those moments in the bathroom where I'm polishing a tiny thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that, vintage quartz watches are another really good example of watches that can suck very much to own.
Oyster quartz?
Well, oyster quartz is a bitch specifically because the servicing them can be very, very difficult. The parts availability is really rather difficult in my experience. Okay,
sure.
And it's not for every watch. It's when certain things go bad. If you're having a really bad fucking run, then you have a problem, right? But average oyster quartz, I'm sure you're fine. But even just vintage regular quartz watches, because something that quartz watches do that regular mechanical watches just don't, is left unattended, what happens to your mechanical watch? It dries out,
falls asleep and dies,
right? Left unattended, a quartz watch, its battery bleeds. And it ruins the whole movement. It ruins the circuit board, ruins everything, right? So if you leave a quartz watch unattended for too long, you are certainly running a risk that battery will destroy everything inside.
Wow.
And then good luck getting a replacement movement entirely. Like that, and I've seen it happen so many times. That sucks.
Really? Wow. Remember when your phone almost blew up?
100%. That was really bad.
That was really bad.
My fucking phone was huge.
It was crazy.
Yeah. They were like, oh yeah, super common problem. I'm like,
so it blows up. They're like, well, if you treat it wrong, like, how should I treat it right? They're like, well, clearly it's not being treated.
Have you been
right.
respecting the battery? I'm like, what do you mean?
Like, do you tuck it in at night?
Positive affirmations?
Have you been being nice to it?
My grandfather doesn't believe in positive affirmations.
And that's why I am the way I am. This video is sponsored by Huckberry. What's up, Sam?
What's going on, Michael?
Not much. This is a very special ad segment because we're looking at this watch, the Huckberry Zodiac Super Seawolf Titanium Skin Diver Watch. What do you think about that?
So you just mentioned that this collab to me, and
I just showed this to you.
wow, that is nice. That's
Yeah.
clean. I like that it's titanium too.
Yep.
Nice and light.
Titanium, super light, cool color, different than what you typically see. It's like that fun blend between functional and noticeably different.
Yeah, 100%. And the design of this watch is just awesome.
Yeah. You know the story of the Zodiac Seawolf. I'm assuming most people do.
First dive watch ever? Is that where
Yes,
you're going?
sir. Or close enough if you want to really split hairs or anything. But water resistant, 200 meters, 120 click rotating titanium bezel. All in all, fantastic watch. Fits anybody's wrist well. Final thoughts of this watch. Were you amazed when you first saw it? Do you think it's beautiful? Whatever.
I think that they nailed it.
Would you buy it?
At the price point too, yeah, I would.
Okay, well then great news. I'm wearing it on my wrist and you can have it. Congratulations on your new
Thanks.
watch purchase.
Oh my God, this is so light.
Yeah, it's titanium.
I know, but I was just, it looks
Oh, it looks
mint.
fantastic.
Jesus.
So congratulations.
Oh, thank you so much, Michael.
quite welcome.
Merry Christmas.
I was having it the entire time. Huckberry also has a gift list where they have a ton of cool gifts. This is a 1773 bag, handmade by, I think, one man in Chicago. Really cool. Check out the gift list on their site and check out the Zodiac Titanium Seawolf on Huckberry.
Oh, this is awesome. Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you, Huckberry.
The next watch is something we see all the time at watch meetups. We see friends do it, even if we advise them not to, and it's the Concession Watch. You weren't on the list for this, so you couldn't get that. You have a 6-inch wrist, but you got a 45mm watch because you love it. You got this one because you couldn't get that. You got this color because that wasn't available. That watch always sucks to own, and either you keep it and you never are as excited for that watch as you should be, or you just sell it. You get it in, you're like, it's not what I wanted, which you knew, and then you get rid of it.
The concession watch sucks.
Yes.
Period. And compromising on things generally sucks. And when it's a material item you need to look at, it's going to be a constant reminder that you compromised, right? Where you sit at a restaurant, I'm particular about where I sit at a restaurant, right?
Yeah.
I call them, there are good tables and there are jerk off tables at restaurants,
Okay,
right?
sure.
And the host knows which are the jerk off tables, and sometimes they put you there.
Right.
And generally speaking, I think I encourage people to object to the placement, and usually with a slightly strong objection, they will put you in a good table. But worst case scenario, you need to sit at a jerk off table.
Yeah.
So what? It's all going to be fine. You're going to have a nice dinner. It's fine.
Yeah, right.
Unless the bathroom door is hitting you in the chair, you're really fine, right? That's a concession that's fine.
It's okay to make.
The watch, nah. Because
Exactly.
every day you're going to look at this and say, I spent $500, $2,000, $10,000 on something that I do not like, and I look at every day.
It's close to what I love, but it's not what I love. But I could get that one, which is an even worse feeling. Well, it was available. Then you're like, well, it's probably available because nobody wanted it. Do you have a concession story? Or not you or a friend that like the most ridiculous concession story?
Good question. Yeah, actually. So I have a buddy, he's actually a family member, that wanted a Rolex Daytona. Okay.
Sure.
He wanted a Rolex. This is a man who races cars. Like
Okay,
he's been
sure.
racing cars for the last.
Is he the guy that always says back when cars had safe sex and fast cars were dangerous with women?
Back when Porsches had AIDS, like
Yeah, he never got it right, but we all.
it's back when racing was dangerous and sex was safe.
Yeah.
That's what he always says.
Yeah.
And he really has been racing for a long time. And he wanted a Rolex Daytona. He's got a great watch collection. Whereas he's one of the guys with a big enough wrist that he pulls off the James Cameron Sea Dweller easily. It's amazing. Most amazing watch. One of the most amazing Rolexes. So he wanted a Rolex Daytona, obviously a new Panda. This is when they had already blown up, but like it was still pretty early in, right?
Okay.
So the Pandas, I think they were let's say 25,000, which is before they went and hit.
This is a secondary market.
Secondary market,
Yeah.
Before they went and hit 45 at one point.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So maybe they weren't 25. Maybe they were like 30. Okay. So he goes, that's just too much for me. I'm not going to spend that kind of money. He goes, I'm looking at it was a non-Zenith, but it was an automatic, obviously Daytona.
Sure.
At, let's say, 22,000.
Okay, sure.
Which
Yeah.
actually was a lot of money. Now those watches have creeped a little bit back down.
Yeah,
You know?
18.
Yeah, about. So he goes, he actually doesn't ask me my opinion. He goes and buys the watch.
Wow.
Okay. Now this is a guy that I know his dream watch, just in the sense that he wanted it when he first became somebody in business. He wanted a Cartier Santos on a strap in gold. Okay, he's always wanted a strap and gold.
Okay,
right?
sure.
Like a leather strap or a rubber strap and gold.
Classic. That sounds right in line with your family.
Exactly.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So his wife instead bought him the steel, or his mother. It's kind of like a joke in the family, whatever, you know? So he goes and buys this Daytona, and I was like, I'm surprised you got that Daytona. And he goes, why? And I was like, I don't know, isn't the gold Daytona, isn't like a gold watch on a leather strap like your dream watch? He goes, yeah, but the gold ones are like 40 grand. I'm like, no, you can get them for like 20, probably for cheaper than you paid.
Yeah.
And he was like, wait, what? And I think immediately his heart sunk. And that's simple. Like, he made the best decision with the information he had. But he didn't gather information.
Right.
And all of a sudden, that Daytona he was really proud of 10 minutes ago, now he looks at it and he's like,
what a waste of money.
oh no, I could have got the yellow gold or the white gold on a rubber strap or a leather strap or a rubber strap.
Yep.
And I could have actually saved a couple of bucks and had a watch that I think is
Had
far more
the
valuable.
dream watch.
Exactly.
Wow.
So that's there are probably others, but that's a really good example of, concession isn't always conscious. Well, I guess it has to be inherently, but akin to it is just making decisions without all the information.
Yeah.
And you end up with a watch you regret. No good.
That reminds me, that miscommunication, or not even miscommunication you two had, but that interaction reminds me, my best friend John from Cape Cod, we had this miscommunication once. We never got in a fight, but this was the closest we got to an actual fight. He was like super mad at me because I went into his house when he wasn't home to grab something. And I was like, what? Like, what is going on? He was like really mad, which I've done it plenty of times before. So we're going back and forth and he's like, I don't know why you would go in and just like be so inconsiderate and do that. And like, do you know what happened like with my relationship because of that? And I was like,
Dude, what are you talking about?
And I was going to grab a bathing suit that was on the table. And I was like, what? I was like, I just went in for a second. I didn't see anything. He's like, oh, you didn't see anything? Sure. And I was like, what was there to see? And then he's getting madder and madder. I go, wait, what are you talking about? And he goes, I'm talking about you seeing my girlfriend naked. And I was like,
what are you talking about?
And there's this whole miscommunication.
And you're like, I didn't see it. He goes, oh yeah, you don't recognize this body? And he's showing it to you naked. I'm like,
no, there's just that miscommunication where it's like, not that it lined up. I don't know why it reminded me of that, but I was just like, what are you talking about?
I really should call John.
I really do need to call John.
John, if you're watching this, I'm sorry.
I'm thinking of you. But it was the weirdest miscommunication where it was like the matter of fact of me. Like everything I said lined up. I was like, I just ran in for a second. I didn't see anything. I just grabbed one thing.
Yeah, between a couple of guys. You saw it, right?
No.
Come on.
I didn't.
Don't be like that. Come on.
John doesn't watch his podcast.
I won't tell anybody. Come on.
I didn't see anything, man. I didn't see anything.
Michael looks at me, he goes.
Everybody's like, that's really weird that they just decided to keep that whole thing in.
That bet. Whether you're a Submariner guy or a 50 Fathoms guy or a Day-Date guy or an FP Journe guy, you've got to just take a step back and appreciate this history here. This isn't stuff you're going to find in a showcase. This is not mass-produced stuff, which is beautiful in its own right. I mean, this is treasure hunting.
Sports watches suck to own. And the only reason I'm saying that is because I'm looking at the watch on your wrist right now. We're so used to looking at watches as purely utilitarian. A lot of people, not everybody.
Oh, totally.
That you miss out.
Why'd you point at me when you said, not everybody, some people are stupid?
I didn't know you could read my mind like that.
That's
funny. Not everybody, but like that watch is incredible. Of course, it's what, $70,000. It's quite expensive.
I honestly, I didn't even know. I don't even look at. The
I didn't
price
even know.
It's not that like, you know what I mean? It's just like, if you really, really want it, why don't you just get?
Was that $70,000? Oh, is it on
70,000.
sale? No, but so, I'm not saying you need to buy 10 times the value, but looking at non-sports watches, which are always sleek and curved and meant to be worn in a specific way, makes a sports watch sometimes, like when I look at that watch, suck to own, because I'm essentially wearing like a semi-polished rock and you're wearing a piece of art.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, this whole narrative about sports watches at all being for sport is kind of funny, right? So it's obviously Royal Oak's clearly not for sport, nor is a Nautilus, nor is a Submariner these days, right? Like that's actually more of a sports watch. The Zodiac is actually more of a sports watch,
buddy.
And priced appropriately,
course,
right?
yeah.
You're not gonna, you're gonna wear that and you're gonna do things with it. With your Submariner, you're gonna wear it to dinner. Like maybe you wear it to the office, but you're not wearing your Submariner. Most people are not wearing a new ceramic Submariner to do the dirty work. They're not wearing it to the beach. The sand's going to scratch it. It's literally what it was designed for.
I was on
not going to wear it fishing.
I was on the sea train, and
that's not a thing. See, he almost got me. Sea train can't be a thing.
Why?
There's no trains on the sea. What are you talking about?
You did catch me.
No.
I was on a train, and people are like, "Where are we going?" And they said to stop. And this guy wearing a Barber Ashby, tight khakis, white shoes. I forget what else he had on. It was on his phone like this the whole time.
This guy's no good.
Goes, "Oh, we're going to Hoyt Sherman, my old stomping ground." And I said to Taylor, I was like, "Get a load of this guy." Also, the doors were opening and he wasn't letting people go in. What is he wearing?
What?
A Submariner. Yeah, exactly.
Of course
He is not nothing wrong with Submariner, nothing wrong if you dress like that, but I was like, of course you went and got a Submariner.
Right. And what's funny is I have the Bedale, not the Ashby. Ashby's way too thin. And I wish I had the Beaufort. Sam has a Beaufort. Every time he wears it, I'm like, what did I do with the Bedale?
Wow.
What
but
was
it's just
I doing?
The Submariner has moved that far.
Totally. The Submariner's the Ashby.
Exactly.
If you speak clothing, you're 100% right.
Yes.
Classic brand with real heritage that now has transitioned and offers this model purely just as this kind of luxury rich bitch aesthetic.
Which is weird because the Submariner is still the Submariner. It's just everybody else kind of changed around.
Yeah, basically. I think that a watch that sucks to own truly anything in stainless steel. And I think that it's because why would you want to walk around and feel sad all day when you can walk around and feel happy all day? That's just my opinion.
Yeah. Does anyone get that?
I'm joking. I'm clearly I'm living proof that I'm not joking, but I'm also completely kidding, of course.
Next category. The Moon Swatch category, the Swatch category in general, when they collaborate with another brand, that is truly, to me, a watch that will suck to own because you want it to be what it's not and what it will never be. It's what happened when the Moon Swatch first came out. People were like, oh, look at these QC issues. Or look at the button falls off eventually. It's like, that's not really an issue. That's a Swatch. So yeah, maybe it did break, but that will never be something that you're passing down. That's going to get chewed up. The plastic case is going to look a little bit weird. It won't be water resistant forever in terms of the 50 Fathom Swatch. That is a watch that maybe for a year, 2 years is great to own. Eventually will suck to own if you view it with the wrong lens of oh, it's the Speedmaster, but for Swatch.
I agree. I think that that does suck, right? The idea that, you bought something, it was kind of special, and, down the road, it's not going to be there. No,
that's the worst. Specifically because of that formula. You are thinking greatest watch of all time, mixed in with other brand. That should mean more affordable greatest watch of all time. No. It does not. It's not a ripoff. It's not an homage, I guess, but it is far below what I think you expect, even if you go in expecting it to be a Swatch.
I agree with you.
This one you will not agree with me. But this does tie into the bigger idea, so I put this here for a reason. Precious metal watches suck to own.
I just don't even know what you mean.
They're expensive. They scratch super easily.
That expensive.
Okay, so they're expensive for you? Who are we talking about? Expensive, they scratch super easily, and they're targeted of that's a gold watch. I will take that.
Yes. I understand all of that. None of that. I can't debate you on any of those things.
Yes.
They are expensive. They do scratch more easily. Although in my experience, precious metal watches, again, I am totally fair and honest in that I don't have a very active life.
Yeah.
Right. I'm at the computer and then I'm at a restaurant. That's essentially what I do every day.
Yeah.
So I don't really scratch watches very often.
Yeah.
That being said, it does happen. My GMT has a couple of scratches on it.
Couple dings and bings.
No problem. Now the question is, would those dings exist if that watch was steel?
Ah.
How could I possibly know?
You have to buy another one.
And
God, would you wear
it the same way? Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, in truly in my experience, I think that precious metal watches are incredible. I think that that the surfaces matter, right? So the different types of finishing are going to make the watch seem more scratched than others.
How large it wears on your wrist is a big thing.
On the robbing front, definitely true. I mean, if you're walking around with a solid gold Submariner, it does scream not only rob me, it also screams jerk off.
Yeah.
I love it, but I know what it is.
Yeah, exactly. So I also assume anybody who buys one also did not buy that thinking like, well, this is the pinnacle of like refined class.
No.
They know exactly why you're getting it.
Right. That being said, I think there is something so just primal about our appreciation for precious metal.
Yeah.
Obviously the white gold as a color, the color of white gold is certainly different than steel. I think it does have a little bit more character than steel, has more color than steel. Is it worth paying $30,000 for that extra color? I mean, that is a ridiculous question. I mean, of course not. It's a silly thing to think.
Sure.
But I do think the way that you feel, when you wear a watch that you, on a primal level, feel is
there you go.
You know what I mean?
Look at you
Come
go.
on.
Yeah,
It's
come on.
great, it's beautiful. Be it a GMT or be it whatever. I mean, even on watches that are like Patek 96 is a really interesting watch, right? Patek 96s, Patek Philippe reference 96, the original Calatrava.
The one that brought Patek back and then made it Patek, essentially.
Exactly.
Not that it wasn't before me, you know what I mean?
Was manufactured primarily in yellow gold, also in platinum, also in white gold, but really yellow gold watch. And then there were a couple in steel. And I think apples to apples, and the steel ones are much more expensive than the gold ones, right? The gold ones are like $13,000 and the steel ones are like $40,000, right? So that's just a matter of rarity. Sure. But apples to apples, $9,000 to $9,000, I just don't understand the argument for wanting the steel watch.
Oh, yeah.
You look at the gold and you're like, I don't know, the richness of color. And if it's steel, why not just get the white gold if you don't want the color? It makes no sense to me.
I think at a Patek level, that makes total sense. I also think at dress watch levels, it makes total sense. And vintage watches, I can see why. Because those watches, like you always talk about the heft, those watches are so light comparatively that you want to get the densest metal that you possibly can just for actual quality feel.
Totally.
Like if you get a solid gold, I don't know, tiny little dress watch, it still hangs a little bit when you're holding on to it. You
feel
can
how
feel
heavy
it.
this is. This is on a rubber. This is on a rubber strap.
This watch, we'll talk about it while I feel it because we haven't really properly talked about it yet. Oh my God!
So I just bought this watch last week. This is a Gerald Charles Maestro 8.0 Select. This is a skeleton watch that is an 18 karat rose gold. This was the last design of Gerald Jenta, the famed watch designer, probably the most famous watch designer of all time, behind the Nautilus, behind the Royal Oak. This was his last design before his passing. This was the last company before his passing. These are effectively the last words of the Maestro, of the greatest watch designer of all time.
This is the craziest watch in your collection by far.
This is crazy.
This is even the rubber feels incredible.
And again, like the reason the skeleton is so good is because I'm smiling because the designer of it is a guy named Otavio Garcia, who was lead designed Audemars Piguet, and Audemars Piguet makes, in my view, maybe the best skeleton watches. Period. This is no surprise to me. I actually did a full unboxing of this watch in which I was shaking on the Zero a couple of weeks ago.
You were shaking?
Yeah. Well, I've never done that before. In all these years I've been doing watch reviews or watch talk on YouTube, I've never actually unboxed a watch, but it was coming on a day that we were recording, and I was like, all the stars are aligning. Wow. Let's record this. And we talked about that and a whole bunch of other stuff like Daniel Craig and a whole bunch of other stuff on an episode of
you were shaking because you're talking about Daniel Craig. I thought you were talking about the watch.
Well, that's actually kind of part of the conversation. So head on over to the Zero, sign up down below in the link. We post podcasts every week and a bunch of behind the scenes photos from Theo and Harris and just all the things that we're interested in, like this unboxing and just stuff that we can't always share on YouTube. Head on over to the Zero. The reason I bought this watch, and we can move on after this, but the reason I bought this watch is because I guess there are other like I buy gold watches, right? There are other gold watches that I was considering, right? I really wanted an Aquanaut in rose, right? My buddy just got one. He paid like $100,000 or $90,000. Wow. But the way that I looked at it was to get one retail at $47,000 is you would need to have a big spend history,
Of course,
which I don't.
far surpassing even 100,000.
Oh my God! I truly don't think I'll ever have.
Yep.
Right. Period. And then basically this, and the same true is for all those comps, be it Aquanaut, be it Nautilus, be it Audemars Piguet. I'm just never going to qualify to get one of those watches. And I truly do think that this watch represents a unique window of time in the market that you can get something that is, I think, objectively better than those. It's a little bit more expensive,
Okay,
but it's
sure.
objectively better without begging.
Yeah.
Like these
yeah.
are limited. It's limited to 50 pieces, so it's not like it was easy to
that
get.
is such a crazy watch.
It's not easy.
Yeah.
But this brand, I think, is truly. I would say if I could buy stock in a brand, I'd buy stock in this, and that's why I put my money where my mouth was, and I'm just really excited about it. There's a much
insane.
more formal announcement coming soon. We're doing a really great film about it, and I'm really, really excited to talk about this watch. But anyway, this watch is clearly evidence to me that, or evidence rather, that I truly believe that precious metal watches do not suck to own. When you inevitably do scratch them, so what? Embrace it. Maybe
Get another one. That's the whole
Get
point.
another one. If the guy with a solid yellow gold watch is the rich guy, the only richer guy is the one with a scratched up yellow gold watch because he's got 3 more at home, and this is the one he wears to the beach.
Exactly.
He doesn't care.
Exactly.
I have a friend that wears a white gold Rolex, on a boat and jet skis, knocking around and grilling.
Nuts.
That's the image.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
But
right.
I digress.
The craziest thing about that is, and then we'll get back to it, is the crystal. It's huge.
Insane. The crystal's
I think that's
huge.
what it is. It's huge and it's cut, obviously. But
And it's just amazing to me that Gerald Jenta was so obsessed with this idea of case, stepped cases toward the end of his life. His Gerald Jenta brand, and I think this is better than the Gerald Jenta brand, which is now owned by LVMH. I think that this is far more refined and more interesting. I love how it's, kind of just unusual at the end. It's not asymmetrical. It's perfectly symmetrical, but it's unusual,
Yeah.
It's
It is
bizarre.
insane.
It's bizarre.
It's insane.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Hopefully a girl will compliment me on it.
A lot of guys have been
Girls don't
talking about
notice
it lately.
much.
Next one up, mashed watches. This is, for lack of a better term, like a modular chronograph or something like that. Everybody, I always say I love this Speedmaster, but they don't make it in a smaller size.
Yeah.
People always say to me, well, why not get the Speedmaster reduced? It's a fantastic watch. It's actually slimmer than the actual Speedmaster. So there's a lot of reasons why I would like it. The only reason I don't like it is because it is a modular chronograph. I think 46 joules, automatic, and getting that thing serviced is a bear. So that is, I guess, one watch I'll put on the list where I'm like, it's a beautiful watch. It's a workhorse, but that is a tough watch for me to own because of those reasons.
Yeah, you definitely, if you own a Speedy Reduced, you're getting larger service bills. That's for sure.
Of course, yeah.
I also would imagine if you need parts, that may be difficult. I don't know.
Sure.
As a concession watch, I definitely say don't get it, right?
Yep.
Don't get the Speedy Reduced because you can't afford a Speedmaster.
Or because it's too big for your wrist.
Or because it's too big. If you have to actually like it, I happen to really like the Speedy Reduced.
Yeah.
I have a client that wears one on one of our straps. I think he wears it on the Amalfi, and it's freaking insane. It's beautiful. I love it. But don't buy a Speedmaster Reduced if you don't. It's the same thing with anything, right? But it's so close, but yet so far. If it's not what you love, it's far from it, and don't buy it.
That's actually
I think
a really
there's
good
plenty of
example
reasons
of
to
that.
love it.
Yeah.
You're right. That is a very good example of that.
For me specifically, I'm like, that movement, I can't do it. I don't like that movement.
That's fine.
I also wish they just shrunk it down. But anyways, that is my little personal one there.
There you go.
Deceptive brands. And this doesn't have to be the worst brand that you're thinking of or anything. It could be simply a brand that says 50 meters water resistance, and that means you can wash your hands with it, but you can't swim with it.
Right.
That watch sucks to own. And what's tough is that even just the minor mention of saying water resistance, comments explode about people being like, I don't know why you'd ever wear that in the shower. 30 meters means this, 30 meters means that. And the truth is, the reason why this debate is so heavy or so hard to have is because there is no debate, because any brand could go by any standard that they want. Unless they're certifying it to be a dive or something like that. But Omega openly says like 30 meters means you can go 30 meters with this watch. That's what that means. Other brands will be like, well, no, 30 meters means that if you're in a light shower, that's okay.
It's bizarre.
That makes a watch suck to own. Because you don't even know, that's essentially buying a car and you don't know how fast it goes.
Totally.
Like there's no speedometer.
Yeah, and that's very common in the watch industry, kind of a little bit of ambiguity, like intentionally, right?
It sells way easier. If I see 100, that's 100 meters, and then there's another one that's 30, I'm like, well, I might as well get the 100.
Oh, that's this is 100 meters, by the way.
Yeah, I saw that, yeah.
Wow. Oh, this is our new in-house caliber. But is it? Or are you just saying? You're just saying that. That's actually not true.
Right.
And then when someone tells you
if
that,
it's new because you changed one thing, you moved one thing, you polished one
come on,
side.
it's like, come on, why'd you lie to me? I actually like this. I actually liked your brand before my buddy told me that you lied to me.
Right.
Yeah. So I definitely agree with you. That is a brand that is a watch that sucks to own.
Yes, and along that line is also the brand that seems really cool when you get it. You realize that like you did buy a discounted watch, you like the styling, and it's close, but it's not there yet.
Yeah.
The weight's off, the movement ends up not being like actually accurate really at all. That sucks to own.
Yeah.
That's all in the same class for me.
I agree.
The big idea here though, all of these is really what sucks to own is when you don't buy the correct watch for you. Precious metal sucks for me.
Yeah.
Not even that I have
No,
a
I
very
would
rough and
never,
tough job,
yeah.
but even just putting a light stand up, like I would definitely scratch the back of something.
Yeah.
That sucks for me. Great for you.
You're like, that's why I never wear my platinum date.
That's why I leave my Platinum Day-Date at home all the time. But that's really the largest piece of this. Watches that are too big, watches that are too small, old watches, whatever it may be. Everybody puts a picture of a Daytona. The Daytona does suck to own if you bought it and couldn't afford it, or if you bought it and you wanted a Speedmaster, whatever it may be. You have to make sure that you don't make a concession on whatever you buy, and you have to be realistic with what you're doing, or be ready to be that guy that buys a solid gold watch and then scratches it all day.
Yeah, I mean, definitely be informed of what you're buying before you make a purchase. And if the thing you really want is more expensive, I really do say go without. Go without for a while. It's okay.
Yeah.
It's it. Save. If it may take another year, that's all right? It's a journey. It's a beautiful journey of there's an anxiety, there's a need or want, right? Just fundamentally or innately to just go and get it, right? Meaning it's compromise because you want to just go buy a watch.
Yep.
Dude, this is a serious thing. It's a lot of money. And your money is your time. And I don't mean that just as a joke. It's the truth, So why would you waste your time?
Yeah, I agree.
Makes no sense. I mean, delayed gratification. Nothing wrong with that.
I agree fully.
Yeah.
That's
There
it,
you
guys.
go. Those are the watches that suck to own.
Yes, sir.
Do you have any watches in your collection right now that suck to own? You're like, all of them. I'm selling all of them.
Yeah, I can't wait to get rid of all of them. No, my Explorer broke, and that sucked to own because that was like realizing that it wasn't indestructible when I
did it
thought it
break?
was. When I first got it.
Oh, you mean again?
Yeah. No, that was a prime definition of I bought a watch used, assumed it was perfect because of the name brand and everything like that. Then it breaks, and you're like, oh, this watch kind of sucks.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
It doesn't though.
Right.
It's just it wasn't working properly.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know if I have a watch in my collection that sucks to own.
Your G-Wagon.
That's the one. That's actually been really good.
That's not it. Really?
Yeah, it's been good. No
Wow.
problems. But yeah, I mean, I don't know if I have a watch that sucks to own at the moment. No, I get rid of them if I don't like them.
Yeah,
I have the shop, right? The shop at theoandharris.com.
But I also don't think you buy watches without intention. So know that Hamilton Doctor's watch I bought probably is going to need to get a service pretty soon.
Right.
So that doesn't suck.
Oh, yeah. You buy them with complete knowledge. I'm going into it eyes wide open, right?
Yeah.
So, but that's it. I mean, if you guys want to take a look at some vintage watches, and I highly recommend you do, go ahead to the Theo and Harris shop and take a look at our Patek Philippe and our Rolex and our Omega and our Cartier collection. And if you'd like to be a member of the Zero, our podcast community, we release episodes every week and posts and behind the scenes kind of commentary on new stuff faster than we get it to YouTube. Go ahead, links down below to the Zero, and I hope to see you on over there. Straps, as many of you should know, bring a whole world of potential to mix up your watch collection. They breathe new life into watches. They help you pull out different colors. They give them new personality. Straps can be very addictive. I know people with 2 watches and 10 straps because it adds so many facets to a collection in a fairly easy and fun way. So that's why they become such a part of the Theo and Harris culture and identity. I think we sell more exotic straps than almost anybody because I just love them so much and I love sharing them with you.